Hmm. Hmm. Ah, hello. Tell me, what do you seek in these shelves? Hello, and welcome to Book 2, Chapter 6 of You Should Be Reading. This week we will be talking about Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. Now, this is a book that caught my eye simply because of the title. I mean, Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, it made me kind of wonder. I pick it up and I read the back of it, and it sounds interesting. So I picked it up, and I had a very good read. It's it's a wonderful little book, kind of a love letter in a way to those that love books and to those that also love technology, because it is all about a young man by the name of Clay Janin, and he is currently how to put this. He's kind of out of work because of a recession. He was a web designer and whatnot, but because of certain things, he doesn't really have a job. So he's kind of looking for a new job, and he finds one at Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. Now, the interesting thing about it is that the more he learns about it, the more he learns that this place isn't exactly what it seems. There are strange customers that come in repeatedly to borrow impossibly obscure books, books that he's never even heard of, books that he's required to get. Um, he's also required to keep a log of the people that are borrowing these books, how they seemed to act, if they were agitated, what they were wearing, what the weather was like, very detailed stuff. And it's very strange to him. So he starts looking into it and ends up learning that there's a whole secret society going on under his nose with this particular book. Now, I said it was a love letter to books, but also technology. That's because he ends up meeting a young girl who works for Google. Yes, Google. And she is very interested in some of the stuff that's going on, especially because he's trying to do some fun stuff on his own, and she stumbles into it and starts helping him out. They start unraveling the secret conspiracy. All kinds of neat things happen. It's a very quick read. It only took me about a couple weeks, but I just read it when I can. But it's not that big of a volume. Very easy to read, very amusing because it's the main characters, other than Mr. Penumbra and some of the others, but all the mains are kind of my age, that general demographic. They're very into and tech savvy and so on. And they use some of this tech savviness to help them solve mysteries and uncover a great uh, message left, the secret to potentially immortality. So yes, it's a wonderfully well read. I've never read anything by Robin Sloan before, but I will be keeping an eye out in the future for other things he's written because it's a wonderful read. He he has crafted some very engaging characters, people that I personally identify with quite strongly. Um, and then you have the older characters, Mr. Penumbra and some of the others that are really quite amusing and interesting. All in all, a really good book. I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to have a look into something that is Not fantasy, but not fiction either. Not, it's a weird. I'm not sure exactly how to categorize this book, because on the one hand you've got secret societies dating back hundreds of years, back to the invention of the printing press, and yet there's a hint of possibility, but it's all grounded very much in reality. It's it's strange to me. I've never read a book quite like this one, and I'm glad I have. And hell, what Cory Doctorow? If any of you know Cory Doctorow, apparently he's a fairly famous author. He seems to absolutely love this book. So don't take my word for it. Take Cory Doctorow's word for it if you have to. Definitely very interesting. Clay Jannon, his friends that he lives with, his girlfriend that he meets who works for Google, she's definitely big and interested in immortality. And apparently there's a Google Body project where they actually are looking for the secret to immortality, according to this book. It wouldn't surprise me. So yes, this week I recommend Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. And I'll leave you with this. Help Wanted. Lost in the shadows of the shelves, I almost fall off the ladder. I am exactly halfway up. The floor of the bookstore is far below me, the surface of a planet I have left behind. The tops of the shelves loom high above, and it's dark up there. The books are packed in close, and they don't let any light through. The air might be thinner, too. I think I see a bat. I am holding on for dear life, one hand on the ladder, the other on the lip of a shelf, fingers pressed white. My eyes trace a line above my knuckles, searching the spines, and there I spot it. The book I'm looking for. But let me back up. My name is Clay Jannon, and those were the days when I rarely touched paper. I'd sit at my kitchen table and start scanning help wanted ads on my laptop, but then a browser tab would blink, and I'd get distracted and follow a link to a long magazine article about genetically modified wine grapes. Too long, actually, so I'd add it to my reading list. Then I'd follow another link to a book review. I'll add the book review to my reading list too, then download the first chapter of the book, third in a series about vampire police. Then, help want ads forgotten, I'd retreat to the living room, put my laptop on my belly, and read all day. I had a lot of free time. I was unemployed, a result of the great food chain contraction that swept through America in the early 21st century, leaving bankrupt burger chains and shuttered sushi empires in its wake. The job I lost was at the corporate headquarters of New Bagel, which was based not in New York or anywhere else with a tradition of bagel making, but instead here in San Francisco. The company was very small and very new. It was founded by a pair of ex-Googlers who wrote software to design and bake the platonic bagel. Smooth, crunchy skin, soft, doughy interior, all in a perfect circle. It was my first job out of art school, and I started as a designer, making marketing materials to explain and promote this tasty toroid. Menus, coupons, diagrams, posters for store windows, and once an entire booth experience for a baked goods trade show. There was lots to do. First, one of the ex-Googlers asked me to take a crack at redesigning the company's logo. It had been a big bouncy rainbow letters inside a pale brown circle. It looked pretty MS Paint. I redesigned it using a newish typeface with sharp black serifs that I thought evoked the boxes and daggers of Hebrew letters. It gave New Bagel some gravitas, and it won me an award from San Francisco's AIGA chapter. Then, when I mentioned to the other ex-Googler that I knew how to code, sort of, she put me in charge of the website. So I redesigned that too, and then managed a small marketing budget keyed to search terms like bagel and breakfast and topology. I was also the voice of @NewBagel on Twitter and attracted a few hundred followers with a mix of breakfast trivia and digital coupons. None of this represented the glorious next stage of human evolution, but I was learning things. I was moving up. But then the economy took a dip, and it turns out that in a recession, People want good old-fashioned bubbly oblong bagels, not smooth alien spaceship bagels, not even if they're sprinkled with precision milled rock salt. The ex-Googlers were accustomed to success, and they would not go quietly. They quickly rebranded to become the Old Jerusalem Bagel Company and abandoned the algorithm entirely, so the bagels started coming out blackened and irregular. They instructed me to make the website look old-timey, a task that burdened my soul and earned me 0 AIGA awards. The marketing budget dwindled, then disappeared. There was less and less to do. I wasn't learning anything, and I wasn't moving anywhere. Finally, the ex-Googlers threw in the towel and moved to Costa Rica. The ovens went cold and the website went dark. There was no money for severance, but I got to keep my company-issued MacBook and the Twitter account. So then, after less than a year of employment, I was jobless. It turned out it was more than just the food chains that had contracted. People were living in motels in tent cities. The whole economy suddenly felt like a game of musical chairs, and I was convinced I needed to grab a seat, any seat, as fast as I could. That was a depressing scenario when I considered the competition. I had friends who were designers like me, but they had already designed world-famous websites or advanced touchscreen interfaces, not just the logo for an upstart bagel shop. I had friends who worked at Apple. My best friend, Neil, ran his own company. Another year at New Bagel, and I would have been in good shape. But I hadn't lasted long enough to build my portfolio or even get particularly good at anything. I had an art school thesis on Swiss topography, 1957 to 1983, and I had a 3-page website. But I kept at it with the help wanted ads. My standards were sliding swiftly. At first, I had insisted I would only work at a company with a mission I believed in. Then I thought maybe it would be fine as long as I was learning something new. After that, I decided it just couldn't be evil. Now I was carefully delineating my personal definition of evil. It was paper that saved me. It turned out that I could stay focused on job hunting if I got myself away from the internet. So I would print out a ream of help wanted ads, drop my phone into a drawer, and go for a walk. I'd crumple up the ads that required too much experience and deposit them in dented green trash cans along the way. And so by the time I'd exhausted myself and hopped on a bus back home, I'd have 2 or 3 promising prospectuses folded in my back pocket, ready for follow-up. This routine did lead me to a job, although not in the way I'd expected. San Francisco is a good place for walks, if your legs are strong. The city is a tiny square, punctuated by steep hills, bounded on 3 sides by water, and as a result, there are surprise vistas everywhere. You'll be walking along, minding your own business with a fistful of printouts, and suddenly the ground will fall away, and you'll see straight down to the bay, with the buildings lit up orange and pink along the way. San Francisco's architectural style didn't really make inroads anywhere else in the country. And even when you lived here and you're used to it, it lends the vistas a strangeness. All the tall, narrow houses, the windows like eyes and teeth, like the wedding cake filigree, and looming behind it all, if you're facing the right direction, you'll see the rusty ghost of the Golden Gate Bridge. I had followed one strange vista down a line of steep, stair-stepped sidewalks, then walked along the water, taking the very long way home. I had followed the line of old piers, carefully skirting the raucous chowder of Fisherman's Wharf, and watched seafood restaurants fade into nautical engineering firms and then social media startups. Finally, when my stomach rumbled, signaling its readiness for lunch, I turned and headed back towards the city. Whenever I walked the streets of San Francisco, I'd watch for help wanted signs in the windows, which is not something you really do, right? I should probably be more suspicious of those. Legitimate employers use Craigslist. Sure enough, the 24-hour bookstore did not have the look of a legitimate employer. Help wanted, late shift, specific requirements, good benefits. Now, I was pretty sure 24-hour bookstore was a euphemism for something. It was on Broadway, in a euphemistic part of town. My help wanted hike had taken me far from home. The place next door was called Booties, and it had a sign with neon legs that crossed and uncrossed. I pushed the bookstore's glass door. It made a bell tinkle brightly up above. and I stepped slowly through. I did not realize at the time what an important threshold I had just crossed. Inside, imagine the shape and volume of a normal bookstore turned up on its side. This place was absurdly narrow and dizzyingly tall, and the shelves went all the way up. 3 stories of books, maybe more. I craned my neck back. Why do bookstores always make you do some uncomfortable things with your neck? And the shelves faded smoothly into the shadows in a way that suggested they might just go on forever. The shelves were packed close together, and it felt like I was standing at the border of a forest. Not a friendly Californian forest, either, but an old Transylvanian forest, a forest full of wolves and witches and dagger-wielding bandits, all waiting just beyond moonlight's reach. There were ladders that clung to the shelves and rolled side to side. Usually those seemed charming, but here, stretching up into the gloom, they were ominous. They whispered rumors of accidents in the dark. So I stuck to the front half of the store, where bright midday light pressed in and presumably kept the wolves at bay. The wall around and above the door was glass, thick square panes set into a grid of black iron, and arched across them in tall golden letters it said, in reverse, Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. Below that, set in the hollow of the arch, there was a symbol, 2 hands, perfectly flat, rising out of an open book. So who was Mr. Penumbra? "Hello there!" a quiet voice called from the stacks. A figure emerged, a man, tall and skinny, like one of the ladders, draped in a light gray button-down and blue cardigan. He tottered as he walked, running a long hand along the shelves for support. When he came out of the shadows, I saw that his sweater matched his eyes, which were also blue, riding low in nests of wrinkles. He was very old. He nodded and gave me a weak wave. "What do you seek in these shelves?" So what do you seek in these shelves? Perhaps Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. So I'll leave you for now, and I'll see you next week. And remember, you should be reading.